exciting news for our community with the Energy for All Alaska Task Force. We'll just kind of jump right into this. Nothing on this side has changed from the last update. Again, my name's Chad Schumacher. I'm the general manager of Aurora Energy Solutions. Nikki Garcia is our office manager, and Rob Brown, our president, who is also the president of Aurora Energy Power Plant. The primary reason that we decided that we needed to build this firewood kiln was the motivation behind the PM 2.5 issues that our community faces. We saw a primary need for improving the quality of the fuels available for consumption, and also saw the state and the borough addressing the challenges in regards to the quality of devices being used in the community to burn solid fuels. So paired with the kiln operation, you know, we really believe that we can address a lot of the emission standards concerns in regards to solid fuel burning for home heating purposes. The solution that we saw, again, is that firewood kiln. We went ahead and installed this system that is now fully operational. We began construction in August. It was extremely aggressive schedule. By the end of September, we had the system fully installed, and we're ready to begin testing, running some test fire runs on the system. The way that this evolved is in early June. You know, we'd been working on the conceptual ideas since even just a little bit before the stakeholders group was organized. You know, Aurora Energy and Superior Pellet Fuels were discussing a number of ideas and ways to better utilize the raw material supplies, figure out additional uses for the manufactured products for Superior Pellet Fuels. And of course, Aurora Energy was looking at ways that they could help the community offset some of those emission standards. Superior Pellet Fuels has been in operation for over 10 years and manufactures wood pellets and compressed logs, and now kiln-dried firewood. No longer acting as Superior Pellet Fuels, but Aurora Energy Solutions. We're awfully excited to be able to offer that group of diverse products across the timber industry. We are really trying to encourage people to expand into these markets, support locally made products, and we are emphasizing the use of mixed species options that can help us address our forest health concerns. By getting into areas that have a higher birch percentage, we are now able to address some of the state of Alaska timber designated areas that previously were not usable because of the economics as the primary industry was going after spruce raw materials. For the compressed log product, we still use the residual wastes from the local sawmill. So we're taking the sawdust chips and shavings that come off of that sawmill residue and densifying it and turning it into a compressed log product. The wood pellets are made primarily out of 100% out of spruce materials, but primarily that raw material supply has been fortunate enough to come from Mother Nature's natural disasters throughout the state. We try to stay within a 100-mile radius of our raw material supply to keep the cost down as well as environmental impact. There are plenty of areas within 100 miles that the state has designated for either windstorm salvage, flood mitigation, fire reclamation, and what is really becoming a pretty major concern down in South Central, the spruce bark beetle infestation as that starts to work its way up north. We hope to maintain and continue to see that stay south of the Alaska range as best as possible, but we also see that there are a lot of concerns. And in the last 15 years that I've been working in the timber industry in the state of Alaska, we've seen a south central area that was really untouched at that time now become the hot spot for that beetle infestation. So trying to figure out ways to best address that and help us with that raw material supply. You know, timber industry is a great way for us to mitigate the expanse of that infestation. That being said, yes.
If I may, you just mentioned forest fires. How does that impact the fuel?
So it impacts the fuel because it can only be used for a number of the raw material supplies. But for wood pellets, it actually works very, very well. We can take that raw material supply, and because we debark those logs before we actually put them into process, we're removing the charred component of that tree. Most people don't quite understand that a forest fire, as it comes through that forest, actually just chars and kills the tree, but it only really addresses the outside layer of that tree. So as long as the fiber on the inside of that bark is not significantly damaged, we can still utilize it for wood pellets, and it becomes a phenomenal resource supply for us. And it carries a lower moisture content, so the energy necessary to dry that raw material is significantly less.
Okay.
So that being said, yeah, no problem. That being said, the two products that came from the Superior pellet side, I've pretty much dabbled in on every one of these comments, but essentially, you know, the fact that we are manufacturing something here locally and taking local resources and developing them, creating jobs and investing in this local economy, there is not enough of that in our community. And I'm awfully excited to have been a part of it for the last 12, 13, 14 years now, and really excited to see where it can go from here with our new relationship with Aurora Energy Solutions. That being said, this is the big project here that we're looking at that is bringing a lot of excitement to the community. What you're seeing here, the big picture, is actually the very first cycle of wood that we pulled out of the entire kiln system. This came out basically 9 days ago. That cycle of wood included 46 cords of kiln dried firewood and 2 cords of kindling. So we're also going to be packaging up kindling and making that available, and it's a great way for us to address and handle one of the byproducts involved in the firewood processing component. So you can see those kindling crates right smack in the middle of this entire setup, which shows the difference in size and components there with the raw material.
Hey, Chad?
Yes.
Yeah, Jim. Between all of your harvesting, processing, and distribution, you talked earlier about local hire. Do you have an estimate of approximately how many people are employed?
Well, right now we went from at the pellet mill operation, we started the year before the acquisition with 4 total employees. That immediately went to 14. So we added 10 jobs there. We've also added 5 full-time positions there at the kiln site. The additional positions involved in the timber harvest component, the transportation component, the sales component, the deliveries. I estimate that number is about a 2-to-1 versus the direct jobs that we've created. But I don't have a firm number on that. Roughly, I would say we've seen about 40 jobs created in the last 4 months addressing these raw material components and the operations of all of our manufacturing processes.
Thanks.
Outstanding. Hey, we did have a question regarding raw material. So a couple questions. Regarding the wood products, can you discuss a little further the wood raw material? So with the kiln, you can use birch, and we're not really able to previously, question mark?
That's absolutely right. So birch has always been a component that could be utilized in the firewood market, and it absolutely was, but never on a volume basis. The two major users of timber resources within the Fairbanks area are Northland Wood and what used to be Superior Pellet Fuels. Both of those markets demanded a spruce raw material component. So the economics previously for accessing timber sales that had mixed species options, like 60% birch and 40% spruce makeup, those components were not those components were uneconomic to harvest in the past. That being said, now that we have those options to utilize both of those species, we're able to go into those areas that were previously uneconomic. And the nice thing about that is they are significantly closer to the Fairbanks area than the majority of the spruce timber sales that we've had to seek out in the past. Did that address the question?
I think so, but Rick, you can unmute if you'd like, or if that didn't satisfy. And he does have a follow-up question as well.
Oh, that helped. Thanks, Chad. I thought that's what you're saying, but I just wanted to be clear. That's a big deal to open up a whole new wood source, timber source.
Yeah, not only that, but also every other benefit that comes from developing additional areas in state forest lands. Now we have, now we're going to have better access for the recreational components. We're going to have better access for future development and further access to other timber sales or other state resources. So yeah, a lot of positives that are affiliated with that side.
Hey, Rick, do you want to ask the follow-up question? Because it was mine too. I heard the same thing.
Oh, okay. Just about access.
Yes.
So you're talking about getting access to timberlands and whether it's spruce bark beetle eaten trees or burned trees. And I know over the last few years, we've talked a lot about access to timber lands, whether it's borough or state. Are we doing better in that area? Can you talk a little bit about that? And that's probably something we put up there for what we need to focus on as a group.
Rick, you and I have been working on that exact issue for a couple years now in regards to seeing better participation or joint participation between the borough and the state in regards to accessing some of those forest fire killed areas. Unfortunately, nothing has progressed whatsoever in regards to that relationship. Coming from both sides, there are challenges associated with it, but we're not seeing any progress. And in all honesty, we're looking now at that timber or that forest fire was 8 years ago now. So if they did develop access for it, we probably only have a year or two at best before that raw material supply is diminished to the point of losing its value completely. Really unfortunate to see that happen because it was very short haul distance and great access for development, but we haven't seen anything progress with it. I know both parties have worked and sat down at the table in that regard, but for that specific location, 20,000 acres that could have been merchantable, it's going away pretty quick.
Between the borough and the state, Chad, you have an idea who's holding up the progress?
I don't want to point finger, but it's the borough.
There you go.
So again, it sounds like we're in a pretty good spot right now, but it's something we should keep an eye on as far as access for the supply. and that we should work on simply because it could improve it.
It could
Better stuff closer.
Yeah, you know, and like I was saying, timber harvest efforts are equally as important to forest health as as the resource procurement component for the operation itself. So the way I see it, you know, with regard to accessing areas that have been decimated by Mother Nature's natural disasters, it really develops an opportunity for that forest to come back strong. But if we do nothing about it, the odds of it coming back as quickly or as strong are at a minimum significantly delayed in time.
I did have one more fuel question. It's now that we are operating, or now that you are operating, are you seeing the cost per cord? Is it higher than you had predicted? Are we having a price impact on your fuel stop?
Well, yes, you know, the price per cord is absolutely higher than what we would like it to be or even predicted it to be, but primarily that's due to, you know, this initial timber sale that we're starting in had great yield in regards to raw material, but the diameter of the material was significantly smaller than the average we had anticipated. What that means is, you know, if we're dealing with a 8-inch diameter birch tree as it goes through our processor, we're going to get basically 4 pieces of firewood. But if we increase that by 2 inches, we're now getting 10 pieces of firewood. So there's a significant loss just from that small reduction in average diameter of the tree. And that is really what's impacting our economic buildup of the processing right now. You know, that's going to happen from time to time based upon different timber sales. You know, you never hope that it happens on the very first one because you like to develop those economic, you know, advantages right off the bat. But you know, you know, where we're at is, you know, we are really kind of picking up the scraps from what's left over for state forestry. You know, the Department of the State of Alaska Department of Forestry hasn't focused on specifically birch timber sales for a very long time. They put some out here 5, 6, 8 years ago as Superior Pellet Fuels was looking at different resource supply opportunities. But you know, but since then they really haven't put out much. So now that we have a demand for it, the state is working to focus on better birch timber sale harvest areas and the mixed species component harvest sales that I was talking about before. But the way that the state works is they have to have a timber sale in their 5-year harvest plan before they can begin to prepare it for actual sale. So in all reality, it takes them about 2 to 3 years to put a new timber sale from state forest lands directly into the mix and into the market development. So next year, we're still going to be working in some of these lower or previously uneconomic timber sale areas. But the year after that, I expect that the raw material supply that we're going to be seeing is much more in target with everything that we need on a steady basis for the birch raw material supply.
We do have a question regarding process. Especially it's you know, how long does it take to dry each batch? But I assume that's part of what you were going to go into further in the presentation. So
that's exactly where we're headed with this presentation. So right now we're running a kiln cycle as we commission the system and get everything dialed in precisely to the processed size of the wood and the natural moisture content of that wood. We are running in a dry cycle of right at 72 hours for a 48 cord cycle. That's the moisture readings that we're getting from the wood as it comes out of that cycle is anywhere in the 6 or 7% up to maybe 15% moisture content. So as we experiment, and I guess experiment's a bad word, as we dial in our process, we will actually reduce those hours of drying to see what is the most optimum cycle time for our system. Now we were running a cycle at 48 hours on this very first cycle. And we're extremely pleased with the raw material supply that the end result for the product, again, in that 6 to 15% moisture content as we were running that cycle. So very happy with it, but we're making a few adjustments as the outside temperature decreases and as the raw material temperature going into the kiln decreases. We're just ensuring that we don't run into any sort of quality challenges right off the bat here with this operation. That was one of the biggest mistakes I made from the pellet manufacturing world when we first started making pellets out here. We went into the pellet mill world with an understanding that if it met premium grade standards, less than 1% ash content, it was going to be well received by the customer base. And after our first year of operations, we came to the realization that that is not the case. The customer has grown to expect and see a product that is in the 0.3 to 0.4% ash content range. And because of that, they viewed our pellets as extremely dirty, even though they met the premium grade standards from a national perspective. So that really shot ourselves in the foot right off the bat. And it's something that we have ensured we will not get ourselves in that position with this kiln, which is why we're looking at a little bit longer cycle than we had originally intended with it. But, from that perspective, we just want to make sure that the quality standards are upheld for 100% of our raw material supply.
Chad, how is the reaction to the availability of purchasing that wood? You find you have a significant market?
Significant is an understatement at this point. We absolutely are not keeping up. I think we've got most of our wood sold through the next probably 2 to 3 weeks at this point, and we've got contractors that are just banging down our door asking for more and more wood, and we've got local businesses that depend on firewood for some of their operations asking us for significantly large volumes. So it's a double-edged sword. We're awfully excited to have aggressively gone after and installed this kiln operation as aggressively as we have, so that we can address a component of the market demand this year. Originally, we had no intention of doing that, and we were going to build this kiln starting in April of next year. So we've got a head start where we're at right now, but there's no way we're going to meet the market demand this year before we have to shut down for cold weather challenges. So
what temperature cutoff is that?
It's going to be something we're going to have to learn. We're going to have a good understanding, monitor the return temperatures on our condensate line, and also monitor the economic impact of putting additional heat into that kiln system, or additional steam into that kiln system with that process. So we don't know exactly what that number is. We're anticipating it's going to be basically once we start dropping below 0 on a significant basis, or on a steady basis, we're probably going to have to be looking to shut off this system. So it's not just an environmental decision. It's going to be an economically driven decision as well. But we're of the understanding that we will have to shut it off. And another thing that we don't want to do is, we built this system with the air quality concerns in mind. And we absolutely do not want to contribute another challenge to our air quality issues in the community. And, you know, putting out the level of steam that we are through our exhaust process, and, you know, the steam that comes out of that building is not from the power plant. It's not the steam that is cycling through our you know, heat coils. It's the water coming out of the wood. That's where the steam is coming from. And we don't want to get ourselves into a position where we're contributing ice fog or anything of that nature into our community. So we're going to monitor those items, all three of those items pretty carefully, to ensure that we don't risk any damage to the equipment, but also to ensure that we're helping our community from an emissions perspective rather than hurting.
We have been having, you probably don't see it, Chad, but there's a great conversation going on in the chat box. Ms. Herbert, do you want to just kind of cruise through that lickety split?
Sure. Well, Chad, I think it'll be further in your presentation, but I'm just trying to keep up on some of the questions so you can keep going. And one of the questions was the cost of firewood. So it's $395 for the first cord delivered, $375 for the second cord delivered. And essentially our delivery truck can deliver up to 2 cords per delivery. You can also have the option of buying a pallet of compressed logs and having that delivered at the same time. And then, of course, if anybody wants to get on the order list, you can call Nikki at our office at 488-6055. And I'll put that in the chat boxes as well.
Perfect.
So on a sales basis, it sounds like you're actually already getting almost like the full spectrum of customer base, wholesale, bulk use. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had, you know, we've been working with, you know, one of the major things that we wanted to address when we built this was we're not interested in running out the other people that are involved in the firewood industry. We'd like to work with those existing wood sellers that are certified with the state so that we can help them with their raw material supply and ensure quality products going into the community. It really, you know, they already have an established customer base, and, you know, we wanted to assist them in being able to provide that customer base with quality wood. So that component has made up probably, I'm going to say 25 to 30% of our sales at this point, and really just because they've been knocking on our door wanting as much wood as we can give them, and we have limitations because we also have direct customers that we have to get supply to. So the direct customer base is probably has been the remaining balance of that, but we've also had businesses and larger volume end users that depend on solid fuel for a heating component. They are now looking at this product as a great resource for their operation. And, you know, I don't know how much of those volumes we'll be able to address outside of the non-attainment area, but we really want to help out those businesses that are doing it within the non-attainment area immediately and see what we can make happen. Because again, you know, the better quality wood we have consumed in this community and offset lesser quality standards, we're really going to see a nice impact on that total PM 2.5 emissions.
Outstanding, thank you.
Yep. So just to walk everybody through the process here, we are moving about, I don't know, 8 to 9 truckloads a day of wood is coming in from the Nenana, excuse me, from the Nenana area here right now. We're bringing those log loads in and immediately then storing them right there in our yard there on Phillips Field Road, and we're running our processor up to 16 hours a day right now to try to keep up with the consumption of that kiln. Currently, we're only processing at a rate of about 1 cord an hour, with our processor. That should increase once we have a little bit more experience on the processing, and once we have everything dialed in, and larger diameter wood. So all of those will impact things, but you can see the process here. The logs come in on a feed deck. They go through a hot saw that chops that wood, and then it gets shoved through a 10-way splitter. That wood then comes off of a tumbler that separates what I'm calling kindling, which would be a smaller raw material supply from the firewood, so that when we are putting crates of firewood together, it's coming out of that system in a very high quality mode. Here is, this is an aerial picture of the first, well, it would have been the first 2 batches of wood that we pulled off of the system. And that area is taking up, well, it's 96 crates of wood that span, I mean, that square footage that we have covered right there is probably somewhere around 11,000 square foot. So it takes up a tremendous amount of space to stockpile wood. Fortunately, our market demand is pulling that wood out of the yard about as quickly as we can put it in there. I think that was the one day where we actually had almost every one of our crates completely filled with wood and of dry wood. And that next day, I think we had 47 sales in that on that Wednesday. So that's when we really started moving wood for the first time, and it flew out of there. I couldn't believe it.
So looking at it actually said it on the slide, the last slide. So 48 baskets. Oh, so the kiln itself can hold 48 of those baskets.
That's correct. Yep. So the ideal intent will be, once we have the system dialed in, we've got our cycle where it's operating as efficiently as possible. I expect that we're going to be doing 48 baskets per kiln load in roughly a 48-hour cycle time. It's really, pretty incredible how quickly this process is working. We ran moisture analysis on all of the product as it came out of the kiln, but we actually weighed a number of the baskets as they went into the kiln on that first load. The average loss per basket was 1,280 pounds. That's roughly 160 gallons of water per basket that was evacuated from that process. So it is making a huge difference in regards to the moisture content of that wood.
So we have a question. So those production hours are heating hours, not total work hours, like relative to personnel.
That's correct. We're, initially we were expecting a cycle time of 48 hours, which would include the loading and the unloading. At this point, the 48 hours is going to be a cook time rather than the load unload. However, we had originally expected it was going to take us about 12 hours for the loading and unloading component. After cycle 3, we had that total time frame down to 4.5 hours. So a little bit of experience, and I mean a very little bit of experience, really improved that handling time significantly. And we can get it to a point where I expect a load unload cycle, we can get it down to 3 hours in that process fairly easily. So why are we doing this? Other than the air quality issues, kiln dried firewood is a phenomenal wood supply. It is consistent, very low moisture content is going to help with the efficiency of your operation in your traditional wood stove. It's free from bugs, fungus, and mold. We are heat treating this raw material, which requires USDA standards require that a heat treated wood has to cook for 75 minutes at above 175 degrees. We're running our dry cycle. We finish our dry cycle with over 12 hours at 230 degrees. So any risk of bugs or anything of that nature is gone at that point. USDA heat treated requirements are primarily designated for bug control and cross border or cross state border traffic of wood and better control of mitigating the risks of bug infestation. And we absolutely are doing that. It was not something that was required by any means for our market, but I think as we move down the path with the challenges that our state faces with the spruce bark beetle infestation, I think we could end up seeing USDA regulations come at some point for that. So there are a whole lot of opportunities that come with the kiln. Kiln dried firewood, the quality standard is really incredibly high, and we're going to make sure it stays that way. One of the big reasons that we do this, I know last time around I shared a video of this. Now I'm just going to share the captured screen. But really what we're looking at here, after a 30-minute burn time, the opportunity to get that temperature of your stove up as quickly as possible is the best way to reduce and control the emissions off of a solid fuel burning appliance. That startup phase contributes a huge percentage of the total emissions generated on every cycle with that stove. So when you can mitigate that and get up to temperature in half the time by going to a cleaner wood, half the time or even less, it is drastically reducing the emissions associated with that solid burning appliance. Here's our quick ad campaign. How about that? Again, we are doing a number of different options for the residential and commercial sales. Delivery and pickup options are both available. We do have extreme limitations on how we can load out customers, but the option for people to come and hand load is always there. The pickup option, where we actually dump into people's vehicles, is limited to basically commercial trucks with sidewalls or commercial trailers. We are picking up one of those 200 cubic foot baskets full of wood and just spinning it over with a forklift. We have a rotating head forklift that then dumps that entire basket 5 feet into someone's trailer. So you can understand that is going to be a challenge if someone really wants us to do that with their $60,000 pickup truck. We just can't afford to do it. So we're limiting people with the pickup options on residential vehicles to loading that by hand. We are one thing that always comes up in discussion is, well, what if I have wood and I want you to dry it? Well, absolutely, we'll dry people's wood for them. They on a contract basis, they can basically pay us to dry their wood so that they don't have to buy wood from us. They just have to ensure that it's at a low moisture content. So that is definitely an option. As far as an exchange program, we would love to see something like that happen. I really would rather see customers bring their wood to us and then we dry it for them and turn it around that way, rather than they bring in a crate of wood and take a crate of our wood, and then as we get into it, we find out that, oh, there's some aspen and cottonwood and spruce mixed into it, and I can't then sell that wood to another customer. We're really, again, emphasizing the importance on quality standards in regards to our operations. So the exchange program is going to be limited as far as what we're able to do with it, but I really, want to be able to offer that to the community, and in order to incentivize people that do want to get out and get the exercise affiliated with, cutting and splitting their own wood, going through that process. If they want to use it immediately, I want to give them the avenue to be able to use it that same year, by making sure that it's a dry fuel. And if there are any other questions about that, I'm happy to discuss it as well. This is a really neat little slide that Lisa put together in regards to, the 7 days that we've now been selling wood. We've had just incredible feedback from the customer base. Very excited about how this product has been received by the customers. People are getting out there and they're stacking up their wood. We're emphasizing an importance of people to cover the wood immediately after it arrives, and then get it stacked and stored as quickly as possible to ensure that the elements do not impact that fuel quality, and make sure that the wood that they got is still ready to be burned when they do get around to using it for their heating this winter.
So Chad, I never thought of this until right now, but I know that a lot of products come with the little packets that help essentially internal climate control, Is there anything like that for wood, or for these bulk products?
As far as climate control, you mean like a silica packet or something like that, or what are you?
Yes, that is what I mean.
Okay. I don't know if it's really applicable on a large volume basis for like a cord of firewood, but it's something that I've really entertained the idea on for my compressed log product. Adding something like that could potentially allow me to package that material at a higher operating temperature, or a higher finished product temperature. And really that does nothing for the customer base, but it reduces the amount of times that I have to handle that product in the packaging. If I'm able to deal with an immediately hot product going into that packaging line, it could make a big difference. So I've looked at that concept. I don't know if there's anything that could be applied on a large volume basis for say a cord of firewood. If it was an airtight or completely enclosed boat or something of that nature, and then it's possible.
We do have a couple of questions. Since you just touched on drying of someone's wood for them, do we have any kind of idea as far as is there a rack price or just a service price for that? Or are we still working that out?
We are still looking at the economics involved in that drying process to confirm what that number could be. I know that there has been a tentative number put together, but I can't tell you what it is right now. I don't recall exactly what that number estimate was.
We did have one technical question. If I can find it again, what temp is the kiln operating at? Assuming this is not low enthalpy rejected heat.
That's a big word. I'm a business major, right? I'm not a scientist. So, I guess I always kind of joked around and I said, that's a big word, like gymnasium. That's about the. So, yes, we're operating that system. We have to bring it up to temperature fairly slow because the startup phases really directly impact the amount of steam that's discharged out of that firewood. So we take basically in 1 to 2 hour increments where we're bringing that temperature up, and then we're monitoring the humidity levels. We have a wet bulb and a dry bulb system that monitors the humidity involved inside of that kiln. And then as that humidity level increases, that's when we will vent and discharge steam out of that operation. So basically have a published schedule that begins that operation at basically room temperature. So right now about 30 degrees. and we're bringing it up to 230 degrees in probably, I think it's a 9-stage sequence that will gauge that, and then we'll continue it at a 230 degree Fahrenheit operating system while we decrease the humidity allowances in that system. So basically, as that wet bulb system gets up to the regulated humidity level, then as soon as it gets to that point, then we'll decrease it again so that we're constantly flushing that steam out of that system and reducing the amount of moisture in total with that product. So 230 is the end temperature involved in that process. We can have steam from the power plant up to 370 degrees Fahrenheit coming through that process.
You are utilizing the steam as opposed to hot water.
Yes. Yeah. We had looked at both the steam and the hot water. The hot water, unfortunately, it could have been done with the hot water, but the economics would have greatly increased the amount of dry time. The max temperature we would have been able to achieve with hot water was probably around 190 degrees Fahrenheit for the wood. We could have been, and that's after I think the hot water temp cycle, we could have gotten up to around 220 to 230 degrees, but it wasn't enough to be able to carry the energy load that we wanted to do in a shorter cycle. So we invested in adding a steam line direct from the power plant to the kiln, rather than utilizing the hot water line that runs immediately adjacent to the kiln operation on site already.
Okay. Do we have any further questions? Whoa. Oh no, it looks like that's an answer from Miss Lisa. Okay, proceed, sir.
And really, this next slide that we're showing here really has nothing to do with our manufactured products, but we are beginning to sell and carry solo stoves. It's a product that's been pretty exciting for us. The nice way that this fits with our business model is these solo stoves are essentially a smokeless fire pit. You can sit around this solo stove and it is not, you don't have to go in and shower at the end of the night every time that you do this on your porch. So we're excited about being able to see this, and the smokeless options that are affiliated with it are really a nice match for what we're trying to achieve with reducing emissions in our community. This is a product that we're going to maintain and keep in inventory at our sales office, which is located at 1205 First Avenue. And lastly, as you can see, there's that sales office address. We've got the North Pole Manufacturing for the pellets and compressed logs, and then of course on Phillipsfield Road is where our kiln and firewood processing yard is located. And if you haven't driven by yet, it's a pretty interesting site. So and please do not call the fire department when you see steam coming out of that building, because it's intentional.
Chad, this is Jim. So is there opportunity to expand what you currently have for a kiln?
Absolutely. We designed this kiln with a shared wall. We're really just kind of waiting to see on the market next year, when we have an entire year of operating, to determine how the volumes that are going to be in demand for this firewood. At that point, we'll make a decision probably by the end of 2021 as to whether or not we're going to add a second kiln immediately attached to this kiln. The advantages are incredible. The fact that you'll be able to basically go back and forth and constantly have wood cooking while you're pulling out of the other one, rotating them back and forth, there's some energy savings affiliated with it, and it makes a lot of sense. But we have to match the market demand on it first.
And then finished product coming out of the kiln, Chad. I'm assuming that if it's not distributed right away, that it would reabsorb moisture. Do you have inventory capability?
I've got some inventory capability. What we're doing is stockpiling and covering product. So if direct precipitation is not getting on the product, it is not going to absorb it just through sitting in the atmosphere. But what you're worried about is exposing it to rain or snow in that scenario. Yeah, so we don't have a whole lot of storage space today. I do have a number of tents that we're looking to add to that property as well, that will help us cover and protect that product and add to that inventory surplus. Next year, I imagine we're going to have to do that, just because I'm going to have to cycle that wood out of those crates so that I can keep crates always in front of the kiln to be able to cycle through. So we're going to have to come up with some options to quickly move wood. Over here at the 1205 First Avenue warehouse, we have a nice pole barn in the backyard that we're staging some dry wood for people to come and pick up and load out their vehicle themselves. That has the capacity to store quite a bit of wood. And then I've got the indoor warehouse over here as well that we're able to stage quite a bit of wood with. So it's never enough. I'm never going to have enough storage to where I feel comfortable with it, but time will tell as far as how the product rotates in the market distribution.
Ms. Klukas had a question. Hey, Tanya, I had to mute you for just a second for feedback, but if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, you may.
Okay, there, I should be unmuted. Anyway, Chad,
Yes,
yeah, this is Tanya in Rep. Hopkins' office, and sorry about that phone call. The representative and I know firefighters, and when the tone out came out, they couldn't get any contact info for you, and so we dug up your phone number and gave it to them. So hopefully you will not get those phone calls anymore.
Hey, no,
Okay.
it was bound to happen. There was no question about it. I know the fire department was getting a number of calls about it, and I'm glad that they were finally able to reach me directly. And we actually had people on site by the time I had even gotten a phone call, so we were fortunate from that side. But really, it's new. When people are not expecting to see steam just rolling out of a building like that, it can surprise a few people. So I appreciate the community mentality of looking out for each other, and that's exactly what the community base was doing for us.
Hey, Chad, we do have a few essentially complementary questions. Really, they're actually regarding essentially the Aurora power plant. Has this had an impact on the electrical output of the Aurora impact? Does it, or how?
Yeah. At this point, no. It has had zero impact on it. We've been able to cycle their excess steam capacity from that operation and cycle it around. The way that Aurora Energy's power plant works is, they run those boilers as hard and as long as they possibly can to put out as much energy for Golden Valley as absolutely possible. And that's to our community's benefit, because it is the lowest producing power cost that we have available to us. Now, from that regard, everyone, I've heard a number of questions in regards to, well, if you're pulling all of this steam and it's gonna make that power plant work harder and burn more coal. And if this was a standard or the traditional power plant operation schedule where they're operating on a metered basis and just trying to put out exactly what's metered, that would be the case. But instead, that's not the case for us. Because those boilers are running as hard as possible to put out, and I shouldn't say hard, but to put out as much energy as possible. That's what they're doing. If our steam system called for more power or for more heat, I guess, then at that point, then what the power plant is able to put out, then instead of burning the coal to generate power, they would be burning that exact same volume of coal to generate heat. The nice thing about that is the heat component output of power generation usually exceeds the power generation. So, as this component works out, really, we're not seeing the power plant burn any additional coal in order to provide us with steam, and we're able to capture that steam that was previously just discharged, and we're cycling it through and actually putting it to use for our community. So
Boosting efficiency.
absolutely, that's exactly what you see happen in this process. And I can't say that it is zero emissions affiliated with the power plant for the generation that's coming to us, but I can say that we're taking a product that was previously discharged into the atmosphere, and we're cycling it, and we're taking advantage of it, and we're utilizing it for the good for our community. So, I see this as a huge win in that scenario.
All right.
Chad, is there more steam available if you were to increase production?
Absolutely, yeah. And really, again, I had mentioned the ice fog concerns. If we added another kiln, we absolutely have that steam capacity to be able to cycle that for 2 kilns in those operations. We are significantly smaller in energy demand than what that power plant is designed to generate and puts out. So, we have huge capacity to address.
Along that same line, so regarding capacity, again, you put in you put in a steam loop again for this kiln. Is there any extra capacity on that heat loop beyond, say, the requirements of just a second kiln for further utilization?
Yeah, there absolutely is, and the nice thing, when you look at our community, when the steam loop distribution is really in highest demand, is that December, January, February time period. And that's what they've been using it for in the past, is on that steam distribution. This is the first time that they've had steam across the river, really. So the opportunity for us to utilize that steam distribution and expand the steam options around the community on that side of the river are great now. And it's available for those months where we hope to not be running the kiln system in the first place. So, it really makes a whole lot of sense in how it could meet some of the heat demand needs in the community, and it helps us with those emission standards.
Okay. All right, well, it looks like we've gotten to the end of the chat box, and it is right at 9 a.m.
Jomo, before we close, we are definitely going to have some sort of open house kind of ribbon cutting ceremony, and we will make sure that FEDC and this task force is invited to that. But we've got some finishing touches that we're trying to put on, and they're trying to kind of fine tune the kiln. So we will keep you posted on that.
Perfect, Lisa. Thank you. Appreciate it. We always have enjoyed working with Usability et al. So again, great job.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of representatives that have worked hard with us too in the legislature, and have been big supporters of this project, from the stakeholders group all the way through. So thank you so much for all of that support. I don't think we could have a better person leading the charge than Chad, and Rob Brown. They went on the road show and toured all of these kiln facilities in the lower 48 to make sure that Fairbanks, Alaska had the best operations here. So make sure you give us a call if there's any questions, 488-6055. And we pride ourselves on some excellent customer service, and we look forward to hearing from some of the testimonials that you guys will have for using our product. So thanks again.
All right. Well, again, Chad, Lisa, great presentation, great operation, and it really is a thrill. And I'm just so impressed that you all were able to get this thing constructed, up and running within that short timeline. It's just amazing. So thank you very much. For the good of the order, let's see. We do have, I don't have anyone lined up for next week, although I'm still going to keep working on it. I do want to let everyone know that FEDC is hosting a ballot measure 1 informational forum tomorrow. The notice of it was included in the notice for this meeting. And so everybody's invited to tune in. It's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Again, it's Zoom all day long these days, but actually it's on YouTube. But again, so it's a panel of economists hosted by Mr. Dotson, moderated by President Schutt over at Doyon. Again, economists discussing ballot measure 1. All right, so without any further ado, again, thanks everybody for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Always good to see everybody. And all right, have a good week. Oh, and don't remember, Chamber of Commerce is having voter forums, both today at noon, but also tomorrow at noon. So there's another chance to meet, get to know the candidates in debate. So tomorrow, today at noon, Chamber of Commerce, you can find the link on their website. Tomorrow at noon, a special engagement. Chamber of Commerce candidate debate preceded at 10 a.m. with a discussion of ballot measure 1. All right, thanks a million, everybody, and we will see you later.